Did you know the term Cold War first appeared in a 1945 essay by an English writer, George Orwell, in his book called You and the Atomic Bomb? Bonjour. Good morning to each and everyone. Again, I'm here in front of you to carry on with a second video of the first chapter from the book The World Politics. The chapter's name is The Cold War Era. I hope that you must have revised the first video of the same chapter, in which we discussed what the Cold War is and how the world got divided into two superpowers led by USA and USSR. So today, before we begin with the slide explanation, I would like to tell you that in the upcoming videos we'll be discussing about the deleted portion from CBSE this year, so that we get to know that what we need to study and what not. So let us move on to the emergence of the two power blocks. The two superpowers were keen on expanding their spheres. I hope you remember that the two superpowers, the two sides led by Soviet Union and America, each of them were keen to expand their periphery, their spheres of power and influence over the whole world. The smaller states in the alliances used the link to the superpowers for their own purposes. Now, it is quite very natural that the superpowers will lead on with the smaller states and the smaller countries. The smaller countries will always try to take benefit from the superpowers in order to increase their power, their intelligence, their science and technology, and their finances. Now, they got the promise of protection, weapons, and economic aid against their local rivals. The word rival would mean a competitor, or in other simple language, we can even call it as an enemy. Mostly the regional neighbors with whom they had rivalries. That means that the smaller countries, the smaller states, had some of the other differences with their local rivalries or with their local rivals, their neighboring states, their neighboring countries. And once they got to know that the world was divided into two superpowers, so they started seeking help from USSR or USA for their own benefits. Alliance systems led by the two superpowers therefore threatened to divide the entire world into two camps. Students, I hope you remember that in the previous video when we were discussing about the Cold War, then I told you that the world has got divided into two superpowers, or in other way we can even say that there were two camps. One was led by USA, that is the Western Bloc, American Bloc, and the other was led by USSR, that is the Soviet Bloc. So, many of the smaller states, many of the smaller countries started seeking help from these two superpowers in order to in order to increase their impact. They also started solving their petty issues with their neighbors by seeking weapons, by taking help of finance, that is increasing their economic aid, taking weapons, science and technology from them so that they can become more powerful. Most countries of the Western Europe sided with the US, and those of Eastern Europe joined the Soviet camp. So this is how we can see that the smaller countries which were less in influence, which had less of economic aid, which had less of finance, which had less of the atomic power, were joining either of the two camps, either Western or Eastern. That is why they were also called as Western or Eastern alliances. I am moving on to the next slide. The Western Alliance was formalized into an organization, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. You must have heard the word NATO, which came into existence in April 1949. It was an association of 12 states. So like this, this can even come as a 2-marker question to you, wherein you can be asked that what do you understand by the Eastern or the Western alliances. So this is how you will write that the countries which joined the Eastern camp were known as the Eastern Alliance, and the countries which joined the Western camp were called as the Western Alliance. Each of these states would be obliged to help each other. The Eastern Alliance was known as the Warsaw Pact. So it can come as Eastern Alliance, or it can come like this, that define Warsaw Pact. So from here only you can get the answer that the Warsaw Pact was the combination, was the coming together of these countries which joined the Eastern Alliance. It was led by Soviet Union and it was created in 1955. Its principal function was to counter NATO's forces in Europe. I hope you know the meaning of the word counter. Counter means to attack or to oppose. Okay, that means something that stands in opposition. So obviously this Warsaw Pact was in opposition to NATO. Why? Because NATO was a combination of the Western Alliance countries, and the Warsaw Pact was a combination, that is the coming together of the Eastern Alliance countries, and its main or its principal function was to counter-attack the NATO's functions, that is the alliance of the Western countries. Europe became the main arena of conflict between the superpowers. Now you can imagine the condition of the world that time. The entire world was divided into 2 camps. One led by Soviet Union, another led by the USA, that is America. And the smaller countries, the smaller states were trying to join each of the alliance in order to influence their power, in order to increase their arena, in order to increase their economic aids, in order to develop the quantity of the weapons they had, so that they can become more powerful. The Soviet Union used its influence in Eastern Europe, backed by the very large presence of its armies in the countries of the region. I'm moving on to the next slide. In East and Southeast Asia and in West Asia, that is often called as the Middle East, the United States built an alliance system called the Southeast Asian Treaty, that is, you must have heard the name SEATO, and the Central Treaty Organization, that is CENTO. The Cold War threatened to divide the world into 2 alliances. That means, if you remember that when we understood the meaning of the Cold War, we got to know that the Cold War is not an actual war, but there is always a tension between those 2 countries, between whom there exists a Cold War. There is always a, you can say, a possibility of a danger. There is always a threatening, you can say, between the 2 countries. The people of each of the countries are threatened that there may occur a war anytime. But the, you can say, the speciality of a Cold War is that never ever an actual war takes place, and never ever it has taken place in the past history. Cracks and splits between the alliances were quick to appear. Whenever there is a tension between 2 organizations, 2 countries, or let's say 2 people, then always there are chances for a split, there are chances of difference of opinion, there are chances of rivalries, that is unhealthy competitions, and that is why the people of the world got threatened. Why? Because the world had now been divided into 2 camps, and it was beneficial for the smaller countries and the smaller states to join either of the 2 camps in order to empower themselves. Communist China quarreled with the USSR towards the late 1950s, and in 1969 they fought a brief war over a territorial dispute. The other important development was the non-alignment movement, and which gave newly independent countries a way of staying out of the alliance. I hope that I made a mention of the non-alignment movement and the part played by the third world countries. We'll be discussing about the non-alignment movement, the non-alignment policy, and how India became its prime member. It also encouraged other countries to stay aloof from each of or either of the camps. So moving on to the next slide. With their nuclear weapons and regular armies, they were so powerful that they combined the power of most of the smaller states in Asia and Africa, and even in Europe was no match to that of the superpowers. Now we'll study stepwise this part from the slide that I am reading right now will be very important as a 2-marker question also. So I hope that all the PDFs and all the PPTs that I'll be sending with it will be quite helpful for you, wherein you can take out the 2 markers, the 4 markers. So this part which I'll be studying right now is a 2-marker question also, and it states that how the smaller countries, how the smaller states got benefited because of joining either of the blocks. The smaller states were helpful for the superpowers in gaining access to vital resources such as oil and minerals, territory from where the superpowers could launch their weapons and troops. It was a twin-way business. If rather the smaller states were able to get benefit from the superpowers, how are they getting benefit from the superpowers? First, they were able to gain security. Why? Because the superpowers were superpowers. They had a lot of power in themselves, and they could provide them security. They could provide them protection against the smaller rivals. And second, they were able to gain economic aid whenever it was necessary. They were able to gain more of weapons, more of atomic and nuclear energy whenever they wanted it. So these were the ways that the smaller countries got benefit from the superpowers. Here we are studying how the superpowers got benefit from the smaller areas. So it is very important to know that how it was a twin-way business for both of them. The superpowers got benefited from the smaller countries. Why? Because they got vital resources like oil, petroleum. Secondly, there was a territory which could be used as a, you can say, as a project or as a like stage in order to develop some nuclear ban or something else. So from where they could launch their troops, they could launch their weapons, etc. They were very good locations from where they could spy on each other. Spy, I hope you understand, to keep an eye on each other. So this is how the bigger countries, that is these two camps, the two superpowers, were able to put a spy on each other. Economic support in that many small allies together could help pay for military expenses. It happens to be such that when many of the smaller states come together, then it becomes very important. Why? Because in the matters of danger, at the times of some external invasions, they can combine together, they can come together and they can repay the taxes, or they can pay some money, some charges, some military expenses could be borne, etc. So this is how we saw till here that how the emergence of the two superpowers divided the world into two camps. One led by USA, another led by USSR. And then we studied that how the superpowers gave benefit to the smaller states and how the smaller states got benefited from the superpowers. And that is why it was called as a twin-way business. Moving on to our next slide. Arenas of the Cold War. So here we'll study that what was the sphere of the Cold War, how did it emerged and how did it spread. The Cuban Missile Crisis that we began. I hope you remember, students, that we began this chapter by the explanation of the Cuban Missile Crisis. And one more thing, in the next video where I'll be discussing some CBSE points and the deleted chapters that had been there, that had been mentioned now, I'll be continuing the next video on Cuban Missile Crisis, wherein I'll discuss that how this particular missile crisis became the standpoint of the Cold War, and how from here there was an emergence of a split, emergence of differences between the two countries. So I hope you remember this. If you have any doubts, you can go to the previous video where I explained that how Cuban Missile Crisis was the standpoint for the Cold War. So we began this chapter with which only one of the several crises that had occurred in the Cold War. The two superpowers were poised for direct confrontations of Korea, then Berlin, Congo, etc. Then crisis deepened as neither of the parties involved was willing to back down. When we talk about the arenas of the Cold War, then we need to refer therefore to the areas where the crisis and the war occurred and threatened to occur between the alliance systems but did not cross certain limits. I hope students you know that whenever we talk about the Cold War, then Cold War did not happen to be an actual or a hot war. It was a war of tensions, it was a war of rivalries. So herein we'll study that what were the limitations of both of the superpowers. Okay, moving on to the next point of the same slide. A great many lives were lost. Whenever we talk about a war, then we talk about destruction, we talk about devastation. It is, I have discussed a number of times that a war may lead to destruction and a lot of devastation, loss of material property, loss of the nuclear energy, loss of finance. But apart from that, there is a loss of lives, there is a loss of human race. And this is what we are discussing in this point, that a great many lives were lost in some of these arenas like Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, but the world was spared a nuclear war and the global hostilities. In some cases, huge military buildups were reported. Moving on to our next slide. In time, therefore, US and USSR decided to collaborate in limiting or eliminating certain kinds of nuclear and non-nuclear weapons. Whenever there is a loss of property and lives, then at the end of the day, till the day drops, any of the countries would try to, patch up. They will always try to pacify the destruction done. Why? Because neither of them is happy losing their people, losing their near and dear ones, and losing their resources. And similarly, here we'll see that how after this missile crisis, the two countries made a patch-up. They signed some treaties, some friendly treaties, with which they decided not to enter into the Third World War. So a stable balance of weapons, they decided, could be maintained through arms control. That means controlling of arms and ammunitions. Starting in the 1960s, the two sides signed 3 significant agreements within a decade. I hope you know the meaning of a decade. Sometimes countries outside the two blocs, for example the non-aligned countries, played a role in reducing Cold War conflicts and averting some grave crisis. Grave, that is serious. Averting means trying to avoid. Even if they could see, even if they could sense that there happens to be a danger, there happens to be a war, there happens to be a condition wherein they can get into a war, then they would always try to avoid it in order to maintain peace and harmony in the entire world. And if you relate it with the present scenario, then again I hope that you are vigilant students. You must be quite updated with the news channels and the news that they produce every day regarding India and its neighboring countries. So I hope that you can relate this with the present scenario also, wherein we have seen that how India and one of its neighboring countries have tried to pacify the conditions so that they can avoid a Third World War in order to maintain peace and harmony in the entire world. Since the Cold War did not eliminate rivalries between the two alliances, mutual suspicion, that is doubt, led them to arm themselves to teeth and constantly prepare for war. Huge stocks of arms were considered necessary to prevent wars from taking place. I hope this point is very important and you are able to understand it, that though there was no war, though the countries decided to patch up, they tried to pacify in order to avert any condition of a war, but at the backstage they were trying to prepare themselves with lots of arms, with lots of weapons. Why? Because if in chance there happens to be a war, then they are no less than the other. The two sides understood that the war might occur in spite of a restraint. Either side might miscalculate the number of the weapons in the possession of the other side, and they might misunderstand the intentions of the other side. It is often said, never try to misjudge your enemy. Never feel that your enemy is lesser than you. So this is how each of the two superpowers tried to empower themselves with lots of weapons and lots of nuclear energies so that they are no less in case there happens to be a war. Besides, what if there was a nuclear accident? What would, if all these questions that I'm reading, they were the possibilities that could occur. What would happen if some fired off a nuclear weapon by mistake, or maybe a soldier mischievously misbehaved, or maybe a weapon deliberated to start a war? So moving on to the next slide. These were the Limited Test Ban Treaty, Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty. Thereafter, the superpowers held several rounds of arms limitations and talks and signed several more treaties to limit their arms. So this is how we have seen till here that how these two superpowers signed lots of friendly treaties and tried to maintain a distance, tried to limit their arms in order to maintain peace and harmony in the entire world. Challenge to bipolarity. The word bipolarity here, I hope that must be very clear that the world was divided into two superpowers, and that is why the world has become bipolar. That means the power, you can say the influence and the strength of the entire world got divided into two superpowers by, that is, two. As non-alignment grew into a popular international movement, countries of various different political systems and interest groups joined it. This made the movement less homogeneous and made more difficult to define in a very neat and precise term. What did it really stand for? Increasingly, NAM was easier to define in terms. The policy of staying away from the alliances should not be considered isolationism or neutrality. So herein we'll discuss that if we say that India never joined any of the blocs, and if we start studying the third world countries and their intentions, then non-alignment did not mean that they were neutral, that they did not talk to each other, that they did not help each other. In fact, it meant that they did not join any of the super camps. Non-alignment is not isolation, being isolated from the other countries. Since isolationism means remaining aloof from world affairs, but India or any of the third world countries never was left aloof. Isolationism sums up the foreign policy of US from the American War of Independence in 1787 and up to the beginning of the First World War. I'm moving on to the next slide. This is the last slide for this day, wherein we'll study their strength was based on their unity and their resolve to remain non-alignment despite the attempt of the two superpowers to bring them into their alliance. So that is the strength of non-alignment, the strength of the third world countries including India. India was one of the frontier members of the third world countries which decided not to join any of the superpowers. So their strength, their power was not to join the superpowers and still remain connected with the entire world. They also worked to prevent war between others and tried to end wars that had broken out. That means their prime function was to avoid war and also to repay the damage that had been done in the previous wars. So students, in the upcoming videos, we'll be continuing with the chapter slides, that is the parts that the chapter has, the NCERT syllabus has, but apart from that, there will be a special video on the Cuban Missile Crisis wherein I'll also discuss the deleted CBSE part. So stay tuned, stay healthy and stay happy. Thank you so much.